Chapter 22. Stepan Arkadyevitch felt completely nonplussed by the strange talk which he was hearing for the first time. The complexity of Petersburg, as a rule, had a stimulating effect on him, rousing him out of his Moscow stagnation. But he liked these complications, and understood them only in the circles he knew and was at home in. In these unfamiliar surroundings he was puzzled and disconcerted, and could not get his bearings. As he listened to Countess Lydia Ivanovna, aware of the beautiful, artless or perhaps artful, he could not decide which eyes of Landau fixed upon him. Stepan Arkadyevitch began to be conscious of a peculiar heaviness in his head. The most incongruous ideas were in confusion in his head. Marie Sanina is glad her child's dead. How good a smoke would be now. To be saved, one need only believe, and the monks don't know how the thing's to be done, but Countess Lydia Ivanovna does know. And why is my head so heavy? Is it the cognac, or all this being so queer? Anyway, I fancy I've done nothing unsuitable so far. But anyway, it won't do to ask her now. They say they make one say one's prayers. I only hope they won't make me. That'll be too imbecile. And what stuff it is she's reading. But she has a good accent. Landau Bezubov, what's he Bezubov for? All at once Stepan Arkadyevitch became aware that his lower jaw was uncontrollably forming a yawn. He pulled his whiskers to cover the yawn, and shook himself together. But soon after he became aware that he was dropping asleep and on the very point of snoring. He recovered himself at the very moment when the voice of Countess Lydia Ivanovna was saying he's asleep. Stepan Arkadyevitch started with dismay, feeling guilty and caught. But he was reassured at once by seeing that the words "he's asleep" referred not to him, but to Landau. The Frenchman was asleep as well as Stepan Arkadyevitch. But Stepan Arkadyevitch's being asleep would have offended them, as he thought, though even this, he thought, might not be so, as everything seemed so queer, while Landau's being asleep delighted them extremely, especially Countess Lydia Ivanovna. Mon ami, said Lydia Ivanovna, carefully holding the folds of her silk gown so as not to rustle, and in her excitement calling Karenina not Alexei Alexandrovitch, but mon ami, donnez-lui la main. Vous voyez? Sh. Underscore she hissed at the footman as he came in again. Not at home. The Frenchman was asleep, or pretending to be asleep, with his head on the back of his chair, and his moist hand, as it lay on his knee, made faint movements, as though trying to catch something. Alexei Alexandrovich got up, tried to move carefully, but stumbled against the table, went up and laid his hand in the Frenchman's hand. Stepan Arkadyevich got up too, and opening his eyes wide, trying to wake himself up if he were asleep, he looked first at one and then at the other. It was all real. Stepan Arkadyevich felt that his head was getting worse and worse. Que la personne qui est arrivée la dernière, celle qui demandait, quelle sorte. Quelle sorte. Articulated the Frenchman, without opening his eyes. Vous m'excusez, mais vous voyez. Revenez vers dixer, encore mieux demain. Underscore. Quelle sorte. Repeated the Frenchman impatiently. C'est moi, n'est-ce pas? And receiving an answer in the affirmative, Stepan Arkadyevich, forgetting the favor he had meant to ask of Lydia Ivanovna, and forgetting his sister's affairs, caring for nothing, but filled with the sole desire to get away as soon as possible, went out on tiptoe and ran out into the street as though from a plague-stricken house. For a long while he chatted and joked with his cab driver, trying to recover his spirits. At the French theater where he arrived for the last act, and afterwards at the Tatar restaurant after his champagne, Stepan Arkadyevich felt a little refreshed in the atmosphere he was used to. But still he felt quite unlike himself all that evening. On getting home to Pyotr Oblonsky's, where he was staying, Stepan Arkadyevich found a note from Betsy. She wrote to him that she was very anxious to finish their interrupted conversation, and begged him to come next day. He had scarcely read this note, and frowned at its contents, when he heard below the ponderous tramp of the servants, carrying something heavy. Stepan Arkadyevich went out to look. It was the rejuvenated Pyotr Oblonsky. He was so drunk that he could not walk upstairs, but he told them to set him on his legs when he saw Stepan Arkadyevich, and clinging to him, walked with him into his room and there began telling him how he had spent the evening, and fell asleep doing so. Stepan Arkadyevitch was in very low spirits, which happened rarely with him, and for a long while he could not go to sleep. Everything he could recall to his mind, everything was disgusting, but most disgusting of all, as if it were something shameful, was the memory of the evening he had spent at Countess Lydia Ivanovna's. Next day he received from Alexey Alexandrovich a final answer, refusing to grant Anna's divorce, and he understood that this decision was based on what the Frenchman had said in his real or pretended trance. Chapter 23. In order to carry through any undertaking in family life, there must necessarily be either complete division between the husband and wife, or loving agreement. When the relations of a couple are vacillating and neither one thing nor the other, no sort of enterprise can be undertaken. Many families remain for years in the same place, though both husband and wife are sick of it, simply because there is neither complete division nor agreement between them. Both Vronsky and Anna felt life in Moscow insupportable in the heat and dust, when the spring sunshine was followed by the glare of summer, and all the trees in the boulevards had long since been in full leaf, and the leaves were covered with dust. But they did not go back to Vozdvizhenskoe, as they had arranged to do long before. They went on staying in Moscow, though they both loathed it, because of late there had been no agreement between them. The irritability that kept them apart had no external cause, and all efforts to come to an understanding intensified it, instead of removing it. It was an inner irritation, grounded in her mind on the conviction that his love had grown less, in his, on regret that he had put himself for her sake in a difficult position, which she, instead of lightening, made still more difficult. Neither of them gave full utterance to their sense of grievance, but they considered each other in the wrong, and tried on every pretext to prove this to one another. In her eyes the whole of him, with all his habits, ideas, desires, with all his spiritual and physical temperament, was one thing: love for women, and that love, she felt, ought to be entirely concentrated on her alone. That love was less, consequently, as she reasoned, he must have transferred part of his love to other women or to another woman, and she was jealous. She was jealous not of any particular woman but of the decrease of his love. Not having got an object for her jealousy, she was on the lookout for it. At the slightest hint she transferred her jealousy from one object to another.